Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to episode 2 of the SJP Files. I'm your host, SJP. Now, last week we had a bit of an audio problem. For those of you who listened to the episode, there was a bit of a reverberation problem through my mic that this week I have been able to correct. Now, this week we're going to be breaking down the Eastern Conference. Like last week, we broke down the Western Conference. Now, this week's going to be a bit of a different episode to last week's. This week, we're going to break down not only we're going to break down the Eastern Conference, we're also going to break down some of the stories going on in today's game. Now, we're also going to be talking about James Harden and the situation with the Houston Rockets, Kyrie Irving's situation in Brooklyn, and a host of other stories. The NBA is officially back. Preseason games are abound everywhere. Couple of games going on tonight. I believe, let's see, the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks are playing. The Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards are playing tonight. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to make their preseason debut. The Knicks and the Pistons will be playing tonight. Also, the Rockets and the Bulls, not to mention the Clippers and the Lakers once again. And last but least, the Kings and the Trailblazers are going to be playing tonight as well. Now, first of all, I'd like to get some of the goings on in the NBA out of the way. Now, last week, Paul George, we're going to start with the Clippers. Paul George signed a brand new 4-year extension worth $190 million. Now, as those of you who have heard last week's episode, you know very well, I am not a big Paul George fan. Pandemic P, as he is known on this podcast, had a less than, what's the word I'm looking for? Less than honorable showing in the playoffs. Let's go with that. Now, his 4-year extension, coupled with the year he already had left on his contract, turns into a 5-year, $226 million contract. Now, do I believe that Paul George is worth $200+ million? No, I do not. But when you take into account everything they gave up for Paul George, they gave up, let's see, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, like 4 draft picks and like 2 pick swaps. So you kind of had to keep him and you had to pay him. And although I do not believe Paul George is a max guy, given the structure of the NBA contracts and the salary cap, you kind of had to pay him. You really did. Now, even though Kawhi Leonard is entering the last year of his contract, you have to assume that the LA Clippers did offer Kawhi a similar deal, and he probably just turned it down. We haven't heard anything to that effect, but it's something you can assume. Now, with the NBA preseason underway, Kawhi Leonard is not eligible for an extension until next year. Till the end of the season, he is not eligible for any extension whatsoever. So this year is going to be a real tell. If the Clippers can get back on track, if they can get to that championship level that everyone put them at last year, despite the fact that none of them had won anything aside from Kawhi, then he might stay. But honestly, I don't think he will. I think he's probably gone because the Clippers aren't winning the championship this year, and I don't think they're getting to the Western Conference Finals this year. Honestly, I think they're going to fall short in the second round again. I think they're going to run into either the Lakers or the Nuggets in the second round of the playoff. So they're up shit's creek with no paddle. That's basically the way it is. Now, I'm going to shift over to the Kyrie Irving situation in Brooklyn. Kyrie kind of refusing to talk to the media over the last couple of days has left a sour taste in my mouth. For those of you who do not know, I am a Brooklyn Nets fan. I've been a Nets fan most of my life. I was a Nets fan. I was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey. So, it's kind of just the way that starts. I love basketball. So naturally, I would be a fan of the Nets. Now, I was a fan. Now, for all those who think I'm a bandwagon jumper, I was a Nets fan when the Nets were Jay Kidd, Kerry Kittle, Richard Jefferson, and Kenyon Martin. I was a Nets fan when they traded Jason Kidd to when they got rid of pretty much everybody, when Kenyon Martin got traded to Denver, when RJ left. Actually, RJ stayed. Scratch that. When Jason Kidd got traded to Dallas, when Kerry Kittles left, I was a fan when the Nets traded for Vince Carter. When there was Vince Carter dunking on Alonzo Mourning, and then I believe Alonzo Mourning was on that team at a later date. I was a fan when they gave Darren Williams, who was at the time the second best point guard in the league behind Chris Paul. I was a fan when they gave him $90 million. When Joe Johnson came up from Atlanta to Brooklyn, I was a fan then. I was a fan when they brought in Paul Pierce and KG when they were way over the road. And I was a fan when the I don't know how to call them. I know a lot of people call them the JV Nets. I think that's the most popular description of that team. I don't call them that because I feel that's a little disrespectful. But the team that had D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Jared Allen. I loved those guys so much. I thought they were an incredibly young, incredibly talented team that just needed a little bit more time. But when they traded D'Angelo, but they did a sign and trade for D'Angelo to Golden State. They signed Kevin Durant, signed Kyrie Irving. I loved it because I love both of those guys' games. I'm not over the last few years. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have not done themselves much to endear their personalities to me. I think that they're both gigantic children masquerading as adults. I think they're both so childish, so immature. Kevin Durant with the fake Twitter accounts, and now Kyrie Irving quoting Malcolm X as to why he won't talk to the media. I mean, really, Kyrie? Grow the fuck up, man. You an adult. You get paid like $35-40 million a year to play basketball. This is a job, and media availability is a part of your NBA contract. Now, the NBA, knowing this, the NBA fined Kyrie Irving and the New Jersey and the Brooklyn Nets. Sorry, I call them New Jersey sometimes. It's just a force of habit. But they call the Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie Irving $25,000 each for not making himself available to the media. Now, personally, if I was the NBA, I would fine Kyrie Irving double that every single time he doesn't talk to the media. Right now it's at 25. I'd find each of them, the Nets and Kyrie. Next time, I would find them 50,000 each. The time after that, 100,000. The time after that, 200. Then 400. Then 800. Then 1.6 million. I would keep going because I know my man said, I don't talk to pawns, and my time is worth more than that. So we're gonna see how much your time is worth, because I'm finding him every single chance I get. Because, bruh, man, this is a job. I know I'm a fan and I love it, but this is a job, so you gotta get your ass up and do the work. If you don't want to do the work, find some other thing to do. Talking to the media is part of your job. And if you don't want to do your job and you just want to hoop, you can hoop on the street. If not, keep it pushing, bro, man. Keep it pushing. Now, a couple of other things that happened this week was the first preseason game between the Lakers and the Clippers. The Houston Rockets and I believe it was the Chicago Bulls also played. The New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons also played earlier this week. I believe it was on Friday that all these games took place. The Lakers played without Anthony Davis and Kawhi and LeBron James, and I believe the Clippers played without Kawhi Leonard. I didn't catch the game. I caught some of the highlights of the game, but the Lakers looked good. Montrezl Harrell looks like he fit right in. So did Dennis Schroeder. I mean, they beat the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, but Paul George was the best player on the court, reputation-wise anyway. But Lakers took care of business. So for those of you who do not believe that the Lakers got better, watch it. They got better. The defending world champions went out into free agency and they acted like the team that lost the finals. They totally revamped the roster. They got younger. They got more athletic. They just got overall better. That's just the way it is. Now, something that really interesting. We're gonna skip over to the. We're gonna skip over the Rockets Bulls game because I want to talk about that last before I jump into the Eastern Conference breakdown. The Knicks and the Pistons played. Now, for those of you who don't know, LiAngelo Ball got signed to a contract, a 1-year deal by the Detroit Pistons. Now, the way the contract is structured, he's probably not going to play much in the preseason. He's probably not going to make the NBA roster. He's probably going to get funneled down to the G League to work on his game, much to the way that Seth Curry got bust down to the G League to work on his game. Now, personally, I think LiAngelo has Jello, as they call him. I think Jello has the best opportunity to be a consistent scorer in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be a great defender. He's not a great playmaker, but he is the best shooter among the Ball brothers. His shot looks the most natural. It looks the most clean. It's the smoothest, and it's something that he could get off consistently. I think he has a chance to really be a great role player in the NBA. Now, as for the Houston Rockets, man, John Wall looked like he had missed a beat. John Wall looked like he hasn't he played ball last week. That's what John his change of direction was there, his speed was there, uh, explosive, out here bullying Kobe White to the basket, man, and DeMarcus and Boogie out there on the perimeter hitting threes. This to me they look absolutely amazing. Both of them look amazing. They both look healthy. I think the offense looks so much smoother with the two of them there. So John Wall is not a prolific scorer, but he's a great playmaker, more of a pure point guard than Russell Westbrook was. So I think this trade could work out well for both teams, assuming James Harden can get his head out of his ass, assuming James Harden can show up for fucking work instead of, doing a cross country strip club tour. What the hell is wrong with you, man? You can play like $40 million. The hell is wrong with you doing a cross country during a fucking pandemic? Are you high, bitch? Because I feel like you fucking high. But we gonna skip that. James Harden's request to be traded has been expanded upon. He now put he put the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, not to mention the Miami Heat on his list of destinations that he would like to be traded to. If I'm Houston, I'm not trading him. I'm not trading him unless I get something amazing back. If I'm Houston, if he wants to go to Philly, I want Ben Simmons. That's how it is. If he wants to go to Philly, I want Ben Simmons. If he's going to Brooklyn, I want Kyrie Irving. If he's going to Miami, I either want Bam Adebayo or I want Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and some picks. That's the only way I'm trading James Harden is if I get a fresh, young star in return. Besides that, James, you got 3 years left on your contract. You're not going anywhere. Now, I was watching First Things First a couple days ago, and Brandon Marshall was out here telling James Harden to hold out. Well, for those of you who are questioning this, let me let you know right now, NBA contracts do not work the way NFL contracts do. The NFL contracts, your time on your contract starts when training camp starts. In the NBA, your time on your contract starts when you show up to training camp. Not when training camp starts, but when you show up to training camp. In the NFL, you could miss a year and a year go off your contract. In the NBA, if James Harden were to by some miracle miss a year miss a year of basketball, just not play this year, after this year, he would still have 3 years left on his deal. That's how it works. So James, show up to work, be professional, do the job, and wait for the Houston Rockets to trade you. Now, if I'm Houston, like I said before, I'm not trading James Harden, who has 3 years left on his deal, without major compensation in return. I'm talking multiple picks, pick swaps, and players. Other than that, everybody else can kick rocks. Now, after that little rant and diatribe, we're gonna move over. We're gonna move over to the Eastern Conference. Now, last week I went from bottom to top. I went through the rankings from the worst team records wise in the conference to the best teams records wise in the conference. This week I'm gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna start this week with the bottom of the East. Who else but the Cleveland Cavaliers, who finished the season before the stoppage 19-46. Now, this team does have some talent on it. You've got Kevin Love, Colin Sexton, Andre Drummond, Kevin Porter Jr., Charles Matthews, Darius Garland, Chetty Osman, or is it Jetty Osman or Seti Osman? I really have no idea how to pronounce this dude's name. Larry Nance Jr., and they drafted Isaac Okoro, which 19 years old, so 6'6", about 6'6", 200 pounds, 225. Sorry, Isaac Okoro, forward guard. Okay, he played the also. He had a very good game one in the preseason. Played 33 minutes, 18 points. Wow. I wasn't really much paying attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the preseason, but damn, dude scored 18 points, 6 for 9 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, made his free throws. No, not a lot of rebounds or assists, but 3 steals. Man, has a very strong showing in his debut. So he could be something for them. What this team, in my opinion, needs is a solid point guard, because as much as I love, I don't, let me rephrase that. I don't love Colin Sexton or Darius Garland. I think they're both two guards masquerading as point guards. I think they're both more. They're both scorers. You know, Colin Sexton averaged 23-3 last year, which is a very good sophomore season. I mean, wow. Like I said, last year I didn't really much pay attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he had a very, very good year last year. Like I said, even though he's 6'1", which, you know, guy 6'1", you put him at point. To me, he's not a point guard. He's a 2. He's a 2 masquerading as a point. I think Darius Garland might be more of a point, but they're both the same height, about the same weight. Both got picked around the same. I think Garland got picked 5 last year in his draft, and Colin Sexton I think got picked 8 the year in his draft. But I think they're both good, talented players, but they're both more off-ball guys. Neither one of them are great playmakers for others. They're both very good playmakers for themselves. Neither of them are going to have great assist numbers growing out through their career. The Cleveland Cavaliers also, they got JaVale McGee back this year, which is strange, but you know, JaVale McGee got traded so the Lakers could make some cap room to get some other guys. You know, Kevin Porter had a nice little year last year. I believe last year was his rookie season, if memory serves. Yes, last year was indeed his rookie season. He was entering year 2, first round pick. At the end of the first round, averaged 10 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Good little guard. He could be a 2, but eventually the Cavaliers are going to have to make a decision between Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. They're about a year apart. They both play pretty much the exact same position. Colin Sexton is a little more developed right now because he's been in the league about a year longer than Darius Garland. But eventually, the Cavs are going to have to make a decision on one of these guys. And they're going to have to trade Kevin Love. I know Kevin wants the hell out of there. Man, from going to the NBA Finals 4 years straight to at the bottom of the Eastern Conference a couple years a couple years straight. He's a really good player who's fallen off. He's not what he once was, but still averaged 18 and 10 last year. Jesus Christ. He's still a good player. He's still immensely talented. I think he could be a good fit for a contending team, but I think you might have to give up a little too much for him. But a contending team that needs somebody who can hit down some open shots and can rebound. He's a very good below the rim rebounder. He's only 6'8". I thought he was like 6'10". But I know the NBA has been more accurate with heights lately. But still, he's one of the best below the rim rebounders in the league. 18 and 10. I think he could be very good for a team looking to make a step forward. To be honest, I think he might do well in Washington. I think Washington would be a good place for him. I think Milwaukee would also be a very good home for him. Hell, the Clippers would be a great home for him. He's not a great defender, but man, you need some dudes who can hit some shots out there. You can do hit some shots, rebound the ball. But I digress. That's it for the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to move on to the Atlanta Hawks, who made some big moves this offseason by signing Rajon Rondo, Danilo Gallinari, and Bojan Bogdanovic. They also drafted Onyeka Okongwu. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. John Collins is just getting better and better year after year. Right next to Trae Young, who kind of got a little overshadowed by Luka Doncic. Now, Trae isn't as good as Luka, but he's a phenomenal scorer. Yeah, sorry about that. I got a little distracted for a split second. My bad. Won't happen again. Anyway, where was I? Yes, Trae Young, who gets a little overshadowed because he got traded for Luka in that draft. And for those of you who don't know, I was one of those people banging the Luka Doncic drum. I was one of the guys saying that Luka should have been the first pick in that draft over who got picked first in that draft. I believe it was DeAndre Ayton. Sorry, yeah, DeAndre Ayton got picked first in that draft. I was one of those guys beating the drum. This dude is special, but Trae Young is also special. I know a lot of people consider him kind of like a poor man's Steph Curry. Let's be very, very real here. Trae Young's a better playmaker than Steph. He's a better playmaker for others than Steph. Let me phrase that, because he's just as good he may not be just as good a shooter as Steph is, but I would say he's probably a rung down from Steph. But I think he's a better playmaker. I think he's got better vision. I think he's a better overall passer than Steph Curry. So I think this could be a breakout year for him. With John Collins getting better last year, averaged 22 and 10. He's only in his fourth year. My God, these guys are getting better and better as the year goes on. Now, the X factors on this team are going to be Bojan Bogdanovic, Clint Capella, Danilo Gallinari, and Rajon Rondo. I think Rajon Rondo is going to be great for Trae Young. I think he's going to be absolutely perfect for him. I think he's going to have a profound impact on Trae. I think he's going to help Trae with his defense. I think he's going to help Trae with his playmaking. I already think Trae Young is a great playmaker, but I think Trae's scoring might take a dip this year because this team is just better loaded, just more loaded. And I know Trae averaged close to 10 assists last year, 9.3 assists last year. So this year, I expect Trae Young to be over 10. You have Bojan Bogdanovic in the corner. You gonna have Danilo Gallinari in the corner. So I expect Trae's offense to take a slight dip, but his scoring numbers, not in the offensive numbers, his scoring numbers take a slight dip while his assists go up, because I think he's gonna average over 10 assists this year. And Rajon Rondo handling kind of that second unit. I think he's probably going to be coming off the bench handling that second unit. I think the Clippers can make a real push for the playoffs this year into that 7 to 10 range. They're going to be in the mix to definitely make the playoffs this year. It's going to be because the top I would say the top, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 spots in the NBA in the Eastern Conference. I'd say top 5 spots. Basically in the Eastern Conference are pretty much sewn up. Yeah, I think the top 5 are going to be top 6. Let me phrase that, top 6. I think the top 6 in the East are pretty much sewn up. It's just a question of, because you got Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, Indiana, Miami, Philly, and Brooklyn. Now, let you know earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of Brooklyn's 2 stars, even though I am a Brooklyn Nets fan, which makes it very hard to root. But they're going to be a playoff team this year. Now, depending on how healthy Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are throughout the year, we'll let you know what seed they finish, but they're going to make the playoffs. But the Atlanta Hawks have a real chance to make a real push in the playoff picture, wind up in that 7 to 10 range, fighting for a playoff spot in the play-in games. Next, we have the Detroit Pistons, who are led by one Blake Griffin. Now, damn sure no, Blake Griffin does not want to be in Detroit. And Blake did not have a good year last year. Averaged 15, 4, and 3. My God, Blake. Seriously. I know damn sure Blake doesn't want to be anywhere near this team. But Blake signed a max, what is it? I believe it was a super max extension with the Clippers, and then the Clippers promptly traded his bum ass to the Detroit Pistons. All right, I take that back. Blake Griffin's not a bum, but he's not exactly what he used to be. Numerous knee injuries have basically robbed him of his athleticism. But even though he's not as athletic as he once was, he's a very good offensive player. Expanded his range profoundly. Ben Simmons could learn a thing or two from him because Blake Griffin couldn't shoot either. When he got into the league 10 years later, he's a competent 3-point shooter. But this team is basically going nowhere fast. I mean, they signed Mason Plumlee. Good for them. They got Sadiq Bey in a trade. They drafted Killian Hayes. And I think they got like 5 rookies on this roster right now. Anthony Lamb, Sadiq Bey, Sabine Lee, LiAngelo Ball, Killian Hayes, and Isaiah Stewart. But like this team's going nowhere fast. They're most likely to end up with the worst record in the Eastern Conference, maybe the worst record in the NBA. It's a bad team. That's all they are. It's just a bad team, and I feel a little sorry for Blake Griffin, but that's just the way it goes sometimes, man. So we're gonna take a quick break now that we've run through the bottom 3 teams of the Eastern Conference. When we come back, we're going to start up with the woeful New York Knicks, who have absolutely no idea what they're doing once again. See you in a couple. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the SJP Files. Now, I left off on the Detroit Pistons last segment. Now we're at the woeful New York Knicks, run by, what's the dude's name? James Dolan. The fuck his name was. Led by James Dolan. My God. Here's hoping the New York Knicks, who are once the pride of New York, the New York Knicks, who have not been good in 20 years, since the 90s when Patrick Ewing was on that team. My God. But let's get to the breakdown. The New York Knicks drafted Obi Toppin in the first round, who looked honestly pretty good in his first game with the Knicks. You know, had 11 points, made some shots, made some plays. I think he looked good. I think he looked very good in his preseason debut. Now, this team is littered with guards and forwards. We have, let's see, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Frank Ntilikina, R.J. Barrett, Austin Rivers is a new addition to the team. That's Obi Toppin. they're not going to have a good year. There's not much else. There's not really much else to say. They're going to be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference again. Again, they're going to be in the top 5 in the draft, most likely again, depending on how the ping pong balls drop. They're going to be in the lottery. So there's not really much to say about the New York Knicks. RJ Barrett's a nice player. I think he had a good year last year. 14, 5, and 2. But there's not really much to say. I think he's going to get better this year, but I do not have high hopes for them. I think they're going to be in that 20 win range. Probably going to finish about 20 and 50, 20 and 52, or 22 and 50, something around that, something around those lines. They're just, there's no cohesion on this team. I think Obi Toppin, like I said earlier, Obi Toppin showed me a little something in his preseason debut. We'll see how it goes in the regular season, but I think he could be a little something. I think they should have got Tyrese Halliburton because they need an actual point guard on this team. But I digress. They got another forward. What can you do? Obi Toppin and RJ Barrett pretty much play the exact same position. Dennis Smith Jr. is a 2 guard, an incredibly athletic 2 guard. He's not a point, despite what his height is. He's not a point. He's an off-ball guy who's most likely going to be coming off the bench this year. So, like I said, there's not really much reason to hang on the New York Knicks. They're not going to do much this year. They're just not. We're going to move on to the Chicago Bulls, who have some good young players on there. Kobe White, Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, Otto Porter Jr., who's only 27 years old, despite the fact that he signed a big contract with the Washington Wizards a couple years ago. And oh my God, he's making, what is he making? He's making $28 million this year. My God, I bet the Bulls can't wait to get off his expiring contract. They might even trade him to a team that needs a shooter. He's a good shooter, just not a great player. A good role player is what he could be. Yeah, Kobe White, who I expect after having some breakout moments last year, I expect Kobe White to have a really good sophomore year this year. They are not going to make the playoffs. Let's just put that out right there. Sorry to all you Bulls fans, but the Chicago Bulls will not be making the playoffs this year. That's out the cards. Unless a huge trade happens or a couple of these guys just blow up like Wendell Carter Jr. or Lauri Markkanen, you're not going to the playoffs. You're just not. The team's not good enough. You don't play enough defense. If Lauri Markkanen could blow up, give you 20 and 10 this year, I think you might have a chance. But other than that, you're not going anywhere. Bottom of the East. So maybe about 25, 30 wins, give or take. But you're going to be at the bottom of the East. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. You're still rebuilding. Still very much rebuilding. Now, sorry about that. I just hit my mic. Ouch. Okay. Now, after the short breakdown on the Bulls and Knicks, who really aren't going to do much, along with the Pistons, who also aren't going to do much, those are your 3 teams that are most likely going to hit the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Sorry about that. They're going to be 13, 14, and 15. Those are your 13th, 14th, and 15th teams in the Eastern Conference. Now we're going to move on to a team that I'm very interested in because they made some moves that didn't really make sense to me. Signing Gordon Hayward to a 4-year, I believe, $120 million contract. 4 years, $120 million for Gordon Hayward. 30 years old. He's been in the league 10 years. He did have a good season last year, averaged 18, 7, and 4. The trick with Gordon Hayward is, can he stay healthy? Because the moment he went to Boston, man, he has been snake bit by injury after injury after injury. But if he can stay healthy, he's an all-star level player, which I think could be very good for the city of Charlotte. So him getting his 4-year 120 could be interesting. But we'll move on to, well, we'll see. We'll see. Now, this team kind of littered with point guards because the Hornets did indeed draft LaMelo Ball, as a lot of people assumed that they would. This team also has, Scary Terry Rozier and what's the dude's name? Devontae Graham, who had a good showing, who both had a good showing in the preseason. Now, so did LaMelo Ball. I know a lot of people are crushing LaMelo because he didn't score, because he went 0 for 5 from the field, but the man had 10 rebounds and 4 assists and a couple beautiful assists in there. On the fast break to PJ Washington, that behind the back was beautiful. Hit it right on the money. I think he's going to be an excellent playmaker for this team. He does very much have to work on his shot and his shot selection. His stroke looks weird, but there's not much you could do about that this year, considering the fact that he got drafted in training camp. Usually there's like a couple months between the draft and training camp where these guys can get a little stronger, get more used to the NBA life. But these guys are jumping in pretty much directly into the league. Now, I think for LaMelo, because I think LaMelo is probably not going to start. I don't think LaMelo is going to start this year. I think he's probably going to come off the bench, because I know Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier, I believe, both started last year, and they both averaged 18 points. Devontae Graham is more of a pure point guard, where it's closer to a pure point guard, while Terry Rozier is more of a scorer. But they're both very good. You're probably going to have those two at the 1 and the 2. Gordon Hayward probably at the 3, with PJ Washington at the 4, and either Cody Zeller or Bismack Biyombo. No, I wouldn't say Bismack, or Jalen McDaniels. Probably one of those two, probably starting at center. Or, because LaMelo, for people who don't know, LaMelo had a bit of a growth spurt. Going into the draft, most people saw him at, 6'6", 6'5", 6'6". He's registered at 6'8" right now. 6'8", 180 pounds. Looks wiry, but a very good rebounder for his position. A great rebounder for his position. 10 rebounds in his first preseason games. Very good passer. He was a little sloppy with the ball last night, but I think that was just, preseason jitters. This team, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. If everything breaks right with them, I think they could be in the mix around 11 or 10. I think they could be in the mix to make the playoff if everything goes right for them. What I mean by that is Melo evolves into the player that I believe he's going to be. I think he's going to be I think he's going to be a guy who averages 20 and 10 in this league. I think he's going to be a 20-point game, 10 assist type guy in this league for years to come. But I think he's going to need a year or two to really mature. I think this year he's going to be around that, 10 to 15 point range. I think he's going to average 6-7 assists, but he's probably going to be coming off the bench this year. So I would not expect much. Like I said, coming off the bench this year, like I said, maybe actually scratch that, because if he starts, he's probably going to average 15 points, 6-7 assists. If he comes off the bench, it's probably going to be 10 points, 6 assists, somewhere around that, because I don't think he's going to be starting over Devontae Graham or Terry Rozier. We'll see. But I think they've taken a step in the right direction. If Melo matures the way I believe he's going to, I think they're going to have a good year. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to have a good year. Good step in the right direction. Last year they finished 10th. I think they're going to finish around the same area with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they're going to be 10-11 between them and the Cavaliers about who makes it into that 7 to 10 range for that play-in tournament. Now, this is one of the most interesting moves in the offseason, with the trading of Russell Westbrook to the Washington Redskins. Sorry about that. I got football on the brain. It's Sunday. Anyway, I meant the Washington Wizards, formerly known as the Washington Bullets, from what was formerly Chocolate City, Washington, D.C. Sorry, Chocolate City, but you ain't chocolate no more. You really ain't. Been gentrified like a motherfucker. But let's get back to the analyses. The Washington Wizards traded John Wall and a first round pick, a heavily protected first round pick, for Russell Westbrook, which made no sense as to why Houston would take that pick, because that pick is, I believe it's top 3 protected this year, top 5 protected next year, lottery protected the year after that, and then no, I think it's what is it? I think it's top 3 protected this year, top 5 protected next year, top 10 protected the year after that, lottery protected the year after that, and if it doesn't, you know, mature, what's it, bore fruit. That's the word I'm looking for. That's a phrase I'm looking at. Bore fruit. Until then it drops to a second round pick. I don't know why the hell Houston would take that deal for a former MVP triple double machine in Russell Westbrook, but we'll see. I think the Washington Wizards are going to make the playoffs this year. Yeah, I think they're definitely going to be in that 7 to 10 range. They're definitely going to be in there. They may even shock some people, sneak into like 6. They might shock some people, sneak into that, 6 range where they play because you got Bradley Beal who averaged 30 points and didn't make an all NBA team, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But whatever. Scored 30 points a game last year, 30 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. He's only 27 years old, 8 years in the league. He's been making the most of his game, evolving time after time after time. And this became his team while John Wall's multiple knee and Achilles injuries over the last couple of years. So between him and Russell Westbrook, I definitely think this team could have a real shot at making the playoffs. Russell last year averaged 27, 8, and 7 on the Houston Rockets. People forget before the bubble, Russell was playing really well, very efficient basketball. He stopped shooting. He stopped shooting mid-range, stopped shooting threes. He was getting to the rim. He was healthy. He was strong. They were making a serious push to head up into that upper echelon of the Western Conference. And after the stoppage, Russ got corona, and then his game just I don't think he ever really fully recovered. There's no real indicators of how much an effect coronavirus has on the body, especially the body of an athlete. This well-oiled machine. So I think that's what affected him. I think he was very tired in the playoffs. So I think we'll see a Russell Westbrook that's closer to the Russell Westbrook you saw from like January to March. The guy who was very efficient, getting his shots at the rim, shooting less and less 3-pointers, because as much as I like Russ, I love his motor, I love his personality. Russ can't shoot. Sorry. Russ can't shoot. He's willing to shoot, probably shoots a little too much, but Russ can't shoot. This team, like I said, this team is good. This is a good young team. It's a good young team. They drafted Denny Abdia from Israel. Uh, him by 6'9", 210 rookie first round pick. He could be something. He if he matures to his best ability, he could be something very, very special in this league. But I do not believe that's going to happen anytime soon. He's going to need a couple years to adjust to the NBA game. But he's a very good playmaker. The real question is for this team is how are Russell and Bradley going to mesh? Bradley Beal, who's evolved into the alpha dog of this team, and Russell Westbrook, who's been the dominant personality on every team he's ever played on, including the Oklahoma City Thunder when Durant and Harden were there, when it was just him and Durant, when it was him and Harden in Houston. He's going to be the most dominant personality on any team he plays with, but this team has a real chance to make the playoffs this year. Ooh, excuse me. I just ate spaghetti and oh boy, had to burp. So I didn't mean to do that on the show. Right, let me get a drink of water real quick. Okay. Next, we're going to jump into the teams that made the playoffs last year. Now, the top half of the Eastern Conference, the top 8 teams are the Orlando Magic, the Brooklyn Nets, the 76ers, the Heat, the Pacers, the Celtics, the Raptors, the Bucks. They are the bottom 15. They're the bottom. They're the top 8 teams from bottom to top. Now we're gonna start with the Orlando Magic, but we're gonna have a word from our sponsors before then. See you soon. Be back in a minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Sorry for the short intermission. Just a little something came up that I had to take care of. Now, where were we? Oh, yes, we were getting back to the top 8 of the Eastern Conference. We're going to begin with the Orlando Magic. Now, the Magic had a good year last year, made the playoffs, 33-40, got into the bubble, made a little noise when they beat the Milwaukee Bucks in game 1 of the first round of the playoffs, but then lost the next 4 straight to no one's surprise. But we got a solid team down here in Orlando. Aaron Gordon, who's okay. After his slam dunk contest, he's really hasn't done much. Cole Anthony, rookie out of North Carolina. And there's another dude who got drafted whose name I ain't gonna try to pronounce. Chume Okeke, something like that. Got Mo Bamba entering his 3rd year. Nikola Vucevic, who is a very underrated big man in the league. Evan Fournier, who had a good season last year. And Markelle Fultz. That rounds out the main cast members of this team. Now, Nikola Vucevic finished last year 20-11. 20 and 11. 20 points, 11 rebounds. Had a very good year. Like I said, very underrated player in the NBA. He's one of the best big men in the league who doesn't get much credit as one of the best big men in the league because he plays in Orlando, and Orlando has sucked the last couple of years. Ever since Dwight Howard left, they haven't really been able to get it together, but they've put a nice little team around Nikola Vucevic. And this year, even though I believe I think he likes it here in Orlando, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him traded. I believe this is the last year of his contract, and I think he's got a player option for next year. So I would not be surprised to see Nikola Vucevic traded. He also got Evan Fournier on this team, who's a good scorer, averaged 19 points last year. He's not really much great at anything else. He's not a great defender. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see Evan Fournier traded for a team that needs shooting. If you told me the Philadelphia 76ers traded for him, I would not be shocked. They need some scoring. They need some shooting. They need a couple guys who can knock down some open shots. And let's not forget Markelle Fultz, who has had a very tumultuous career in the NBA. Missed his first season due to a shoulder injury. His second year didn't fare much better. Once again, a shoulder injury, got traded to the Orlando Magic during the offseason. And this year, he kind of got back some of that shine. Kind of got back some of it. Had a good year this year, averaged 12 points, 5 rebounds. He's only 22 years old. His jump shot's looking better and better as time goes on. I think his confidence is coming back. And I think he's gonna have a breakout year this year. I really, really do. They're gonna be in the playoff mix. They're gonna be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, fighting in that play-in tournament at the end of the year. But I think this could be a very good year for Markelle Fultz. If you tell me at the end of the year Markelle averaged 20-8, I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked at all. He's been working on his game the last couple of years. He's definitely getting better and better and better. He's great at the rim. That is something that has never changed. The thing that's changed is his jump shot. Whether it was a shoulder injury or whether it was the yips, he's getting better and better and healthier. Played a good portion of the season last year, so I expect to see him take another step. Like I said, I believe this could be a breakout year for him. They're gonna make the playoffs. They're gonna be in that playoff mix, that 7-10 area, and getting into the playoff play-in tournament, I think does qualify you as making the playoffs. So I do believe they're gonna be in that area. They're gonna be in that stretch, and I can't wait for it. Next, we're going to have my hometown team, the Brooklyn Nets, who are formerly the New Jersey Nets. Now, if you listen early in the pod, you know very well that I am not the biggest fan of the two stars on this team. I love their games. I'm not overly fond of their personalities. I think they can both act like whining, spoiled brats, especially Kyrie Irving with his I'm not talking to the media nonsense. Swear to God, I would slap him in the face if I had the opportunity. My God. But we're going to digress. I already touched on that at the beginning of the podcast. I'm not going to go back into it. Now, one of the major deals by the Brooklyn Nets was Joe Harris coming back for 4 years, $75 million. Now, I think that's a bit expensive for him, but, this is a solid team. But yes, 4 years, $75 million, a little expensive, a little too much, but that's what you had to pay to keep him. And I think he's going to be a great, I think he's going to be great for this team. Now, to me, the real trick is who's going to start at center. If it was me, I know DeAndre Jordan's friends with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, but he's kind of past his prime. He's way past his prime. And if it was me, I would start Jared Allen over DeAndre Jordan. I know DeAndre's bigger, he's stronger, but Jared Allen, I think could be a special defensive center in this league. But I think he needs to start to really unlock that. DeAndre Jordan's past his prime. He's been in the league 12 years. He's 32 years old. He's nowhere near what he used to be when he was in LA. A couple defensive team, but no. I think Jared Allen starting would be the best for this team, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think DeAndre is probably going to start. Now we got Kevin Durant coming back from an Achilles injury, a popped Achilles. He popped his Achilles in the NBA Finals a couple years back when they lost to the Toronto Raptors. But man, before he popped his Achilles, ladies and gentlemen, he was giving Toronto the business in the first quarter. He had like 11 points. He had like 11, 12 points, I think, in the first couple minutes he was in the game. Before he popped Achilles, before he popped his Achilles, he was giving him the business and nobody could stop him. But, like I said, he popped his Achilles and that's how history goes. If Kevin Durant isn't hurt going into that series, if he doesn't get hurt during that series, I think the Golden State Warriors win their 4th championship and Kevin Durant completes the three-peat. But that's not what's happening. That's not what happened. Now he's back. He's healthy. He just made his first basket. I'm recording this podcast during the Nets. What is it? The Nets? Who the hell are they playing? The Nets? Who the hell? They're playing somebody. I can't remember. There it is. The Nets Wizards game. Jesus Christ. I couldn't remember who they were playing. Yes. Playing the Wizards right now. He just made his first basket on a wide open drive to the basket. Caught the ball on a pass from, I think it was Dinwiddie. Caught the ball and pass from Dinwiddie. Blew past his defender to the rim. Easy dunk. He looks very good. His game has never been predicated on athleticism, so I didn't believe that the Achilles injury would rip him, would affect him in the way it's going to affect guys who are so dependent on their athletic ability. Now, the true test of this team as to where they go is if Kyrie Irving stays healthy. Kevin Durant, despite him popping his Achilles, Kevin Durant is not a guy who's injury prone. Yeah, he's had 2 major injuries, but he is not a guy who's injury prone. He's not a guy who gets injured every single year. Kyrie Irving is a guy who gets hurt every single year. And if he can stay healthy, they're going to finish probably top 5 in the Eastern Conference. If he's not healthy, they're going to finish in that. They might even fall to the play-in tournament, honestly, if they don't stay healthy. But this team also has Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert. So actually, I take that back. They're going to finish probably in the top 5 of this conference. I think Indiana's probably going to finish 6th. But you got Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Landry Shamis on this squad right now. So I think, ouch. Like I said, Landry Shamis. I think this team is well. This team is. It's got the star power. It's got the scoring. It's got the depth. So the real question is, can Kyrie stay healthy? Because if Kyrie can stay healthy and Kevin Durant is 90% of what he once was, then this is a championship level team in the NBA. I would not be, if everything breaks right for them, I would not be shocked to see them in the NBA Finals this year. Now we're going to move on to the Philadelphia 76ers, who just got rid of Brett Brown, their coach, and hired Doc Rivers, who is a good championship level coach. I think he's a little bit overrated. I think he's a good coach, but I think he's a little overrated. Hasn't really done much. He's had two immensely talented teams in LA with the Lob City Clippers, and then you had Kyrie, you had Kawhi, and Pandemic P. But we'll see. With Doc Rivers, I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good coach, and you got a team that's immensely talented here. The Philadelphia Sixers picked up Dwight Howard. They picked up Seth Curry. They picked up Denny. Saying not shit. What's his name? Danny Green. There it is. Picked up Danny Green, and the real question is, you've also got the new GM, who is the GM in Houston. I'm trying to remember his name right now. It's Daryl Morey. There it is. It's on the tip of my tongue. So what I'm expecting to see from them is, I'm expecting to see a top 5 finish this year. I'm expecting to see a smoother offense. I'm expecting to see, you got a lot more shooters on this team now. I don't know how the hell Daryl Morey got off that Al Horford contract, but damn good to him. Because Al Horford and Joel Embiid do not mesh together. So I thought that contract was untradeable. Apparently it's not, because he traded it to OKC. And now there's a lot more space on the floor. You got Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Joel Embiid, Matthias Thybulle, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Court Maz, Howard. So this team could very well finish in the top 5 of the Eastern Conference, assuming everybody stays healthy. The best thing for this team is you got two, but you do have two major issues on this team. You've got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Issues 1 and 2. The problem with Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid needs to lose about 20 pounds. That's what Joel Embiid needs to do. Joel Embiid needs to lose about 20 pounds, because Joel Embiid, one of the reasons I believe Joel Embiid drifts so much to the outside is because he's tired. And it's easier to put up shots than bang in the middle. And that's the problem. Joel Embiid needs to get his big behind in the gym. He needs to drop about 20 pounds. He needs to be around that 260 range. He's got all the tools to be an MVP level center in the NBA. To me, he's the 3rd best center in the league, behind behind Joker out there in Denver and Anthony Davis in LA. He is so special. He's kind of got like that Hakeem Olajuwon type footwork. That Hakeem Olajuwon back to the basket post game. He's a better jump shooter than Hakeem. But, man, like I said, he needs to lose about 20 pounds. He needs to get into shape, into real NBA shape, if he wants to truly succeed. He did miss his first couple years in the NBA due to injuries, but for the most part, he's been healthy the last, I want to say, 2 years. He's been healthy for most of the last 2 years. Now, the other issue with this team is Ben Simmons, who refuses to shoot. Number 1 overall pick. This is going to be year 4 for him. Well, technically year 5, but year 4 for him. It's been 5 years since he was drafted, but it's going to be year 4 for him of playing experience, because he missed his first season with, I believe he tore his ACL or something like that. He had a knee issue, had to have surgery, missed the whole year. But it's gonna be tricky for Ben because they're gonna have shooters all around this team, which is gonna open the court up for Ben Simmons to kind of play the way he likes to play. But if this team has any hope of winning a championship, he's gonna have to learn how to shoot. Now I know I was hearing people were saying, well, with the Boston Celtics, Rajon Rondo never learned how to shoot. Rajon Rondo wasn't a great shooter when they won their championship. The difference is Rajon Rondo was not the second option on this team. Rajon Rondo wasn't the third option on that team. Rajon Rondo wasn't even the fourth option on that team. Rajon Rondo was that team's playmaker. But on offense, options 1 or 2 alternated between Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. And then you had Ray Allen roaming the perimeter, catching and shooting jump shots, hitting threes left and right. On this team, Ben Simmons is the second option offensively. And then the third option on this team is Tobias Harris. Now, Tobias Harris had his best year of his career under Doc Rivers, so a lot of people are hoping he'll get back to that. I doubt it. But I doubt he'll get back to that level of production. But we'll see. But back to Ben. Man, Ben's 6'10". He's basically a point forward, a point guard, point forward. I don't really know what you want to call it. Can play 4 positions. Maybe he's 6'10", so he could probably play 5 positions. Honestly, he probably play center. He's a great passer. He's a great rebounder. He's a good transition scorer. The problem is he can't shoot. It's not that he just can't shoot. It's his unwillingness to shoot makes it harder for his teammates. So if his game doesn't evolve, they're not going past the second round. They'll end up in the top 5 because Doc's a good coach and Daryl Morey has built a very good team around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in a very short amount of time. Brought in some shooters to kind of space this floor, allow Ben to work, especially in the half court. But Joel Embiid needs to stop shooting so many threes. Ben Simmons needs to shoot, period. Joel Embiid needs to drop about 20 pounds, get his big behind on the block, and start giving people the business in the post. But until that happens, this team's going to fall short every single year. Now, there have also been talks about James Harden wanting to come to this team. Now, I don't think that's possible. If I'm Houston, if I'm not getting back Ben Simmons, I'm not trading Harden to this Philadelphia 76ers team. That's not going to happen. That's what I believe, but we'll see. That's how I view it personally. If James Harden wants to come here, the Houston Rockets are going to need at least Ben Simmons. Now we're going to move on to the Miami Heat, the reigning, defending Eastern Conference champions. Now, the Miami Heat fought their way to the NBA title, to the NBA Finals, where they ran into LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, they took LeBron to 6, and Jimmy Butler showed the entire league what he's really made of, because he went in there and he put it all on the line at the end of Game 5 when Jimmy Butler dropped, I'm trying to remember how much he was in the 30s. Dropped 30, 40 points. He dropped 40 points in the game at the end of Game 5. Where was it? Yeah, Game 5. Dropped 35 points. At the end of the game, head on the things by the rim. I don't even know what they're called, the advertisements. I guess they call them. Completely out of breath, exhausted, but he put up some numbers in the NBA Finals. 25 in Game 1, 40 in Game 2, 22 in Game 3, 35 in Game 4. 35 in Game 5. I mean, oh no, scratch that. He was 25 in game 2, 40 in Game 3, 22 in Game 34, 35 in game 5, and he only had 12 in game 6 where they lost. But this is a very, very good team, very well coached team by Eric Spoelstra, who's one of the best coaches in the league, who doesn't get enough credit for that Miami run, that 4 years in the NBA Finals run for the Miami Heat a couple years ago when LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh was on that team. Now they got snake bit with Chris Bosh when his blood clot problem, came up, and this team's made some moves. They got Avery Bradley in free agency this year. They re-signed Goran Dragic. I believe they re-signed. I believe they re-signed Goran Dragic. We'll see. Yeah, they re-signed for a 2-year, $37 million contract. It looks like they're keeping their options open. They looked like they were keeping their options open until they signed Bam Adebayo for what was it? 4 years, 5 years, 163. I think the contract could be worth. It's a similar contract to De'Aaron Fox's contract. So their contract could go up to somewhere around 195. But Bam Adebayo, just a breakout year last year, showing everybody he's one of the premier bigs in this league. He's one of the best, forward / centers. I expect him to have another great year. In the regular season, he averaged 16 and 10. I expect that to go to 20 and 10, or maybe even 20 and 12. He's just gonna get better, getting stronger. Pat really likes to work him hard down there in Philly, not Philly, down there in Miami. But those guys love it. It's a perfect atmosphere for Jimmy Butler, and he's one of those guys who doesn't need to score 20 points for you to feel his presence on the court. He does so much for this team, and they are just so talented. I very much expect them to have a better regular season than they had last year. Last year they finished 5th in the Eastern Conference standings, but when push came to shove, they were the best team in the playoffs. Offensively, defensively, they took out the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round of the playoffs. So I expect to see much, much more of the same for the Miami Heat. I expect them to have a good year this year. I expect them to be in the top 4 of the conference this year instead of the top 5. I expect them to have home court in the first round. Next, we're going to move on to the Indiana Pacers. Now, this is an interesting team. The Pacers played most of last year without their star, Victor Oladipo. Now, Oladipo came back in the bubble, played a couple games. Hasn't looked much himself in the last couple of years, after that bad knee injury a couple years ago. But TJ Warren looked great in the bubble, in the play-in games, had a couple 50-point games out there. Had a really, 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 really couple 50-point games right now. Now, he's listed week to week with, plantar fasciitis. So he's going to be week to week next couple weeks, but I expect to see him healthy at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the season, which is in 2 weeks? Yeah, season starts on not in 1 week because the season starts on the 22nd. So I expect to see him healthy. He'll probably be most likely healthy. You got Jeremy Lamb, Miles Turner, I think there are a couple teams looking at Miles Turner. He might get traded this year, but good young player, good young defender. He's not a great rebounder. He's an average rebounder for his position. You got Malcolm Brogdon, who the Milwaukee Bucks should have kept instead of keep giving Eric Bledsoe all that money and then trading Eric Bledsoe to the hell they trade him to? I'm trying to remember. The Pelicans. Yeah, they traded Eric Bledsoe to the Pelicans, but Malcolm Brogdon came into this team, a team with no real star on it, and kind of became the leader of this team. I'm expecting. So he had a very good year last year. He's 28 years old. He's only been in the league 4 years. So he was definitely a late bloomer. I think he was in the G League for a while. But definitely a late bloomer, but I think it's a good team for him. Now, Victor Oladipo, from what I hear, from what I've been hearing, Victor Oladipo is not overly happy in Indiana, so do not be surprised to see him traded sometime this year. Don't be surprised to see, Vic out of here. Because after this season, I think this is the last year of his contract. And I think he's got a player option after that. So, yeah, I think he's got a player option after that. So, I would not be surprised if this is Victor Oladipo's last season in Indiana. I also wouldn't be surprised if you see him traded halfway through the season. Now, that's it for teams 4 through 8 in the Eastern Conference. Now, we're going to take a short break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the top 3 teams in the East, standing wise. Not the top 3 finished teams in the Eastern Conference, but we're going to be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo and his contract situation. We're going to be talking about the young Toronto Raptors and their situation, and we're also going to be talking about the young emerging Boston Celtics and their team. Now, here's a word from our sponsors, and see you soon. Hello, welcome back after our little sponsorship. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, SJP, and you have returned to the SJP podcast. Now, I did have a little break there, so excuse me if that sounded weird, but whatever. We're going to start with we're going to finish up with the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference by standing last year. The Boston Celtics, the Toronto Raptors, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, we're going to start with the Boston Celtics this time around. Now, the Boston Celtics are a strange team because the last couple of years they've had an amazing amount of talent, but they've fallen short a couple times of reaching the NBA Finals. A couple years ago, they lost to LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Then a couple of second round exits. But this team is immensely talented. They have 2 of the best young two-way players in the league in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And from what I understand, Bleacher Report reported a couple hours ago, by the time you listen to this podcast, that Jason Tatum has grown from 6'8" to 6'10". Now, if any of you know anything about basketball, you know that's a huge leap, especially for a guy who's already 22 years old. Like they say, most people don't start growing until they're about 24. So Jason Tatum essentially just put on 2 inches. And from the pictures that I've seen, he looks a lot bigger as well. He looks stronger. He just looks really good. He's improved steadily from year to year in the NBA, and so has his running mate, Jaylen Brown. Neither one of these guys, I believe, get the credit they deserve, especially Jaylen. I know Jason gets a lot of Jason Tatum gets a lot of the shine, but Jaylen Brown has improved so much over the last 4 years, from averaging like 6 points to 10 points to 13. Now he's averaging 20 points a game. I think he's a better defender than Jason Tatum, but Jason Tatum's just a better offensive player. But these 2 guys, if they stick together, I think this would be a tandem that could win a championship. Now, the trick is for their coach and their GM, Danny Ainge, to put a solid team around them. Now, they signed Jeffrey Teague in the offseason. They got Tristan Thompson in the offseason. They still got Marcus Smart and Semi Ojeleye. Taco Fall has apparently gotten better with his handles over the last couple months. What he needs to do is basically needs to get stronger. That's his major issue. He needs to get stronger. But this is such a talented team. Now, they did have some issues in the bubble. Now, without Gordon Hayward, who was kind of the secondary ball handler on this team, that duty is probably going to fall to Jeff Teague, while Kemba Walker is probably going to be the primary ball handler. Now, Kemba had some issues in the bubble. Kemba, his shot was not falling in the bubble, so but he's a good player on this team. Like I said, his shot just really wasn't falling in the bubble. His 3-point shot wasn't great. They lost in the second round to the Miami Heat, who obviously went on to beat. No, these are the second. No, they lost in the conference championships. My bad. I believe so. Yeah, they lost in the conference finals to Miami, and Miami beat. Because I know, yeah, because in the second round, the Heat beat the Bucks, and yeah, the Heat beat the Bucks and the Celtics. I honestly don't remember who the hell they beat in the second round of the playoffs. I think it was the Sixers, but I can't be sure about that. The Eastern Conference playoffs can irritate me sometimes, so sometimes I check out. But the Boston Celtics are a team that they're definitely in the top three of this conference. I think without Gordon Hayward on the court, that's going to give Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown much more space to work in. I expect both of them to take jumps in their production this year. I expect them both to just evolve as players as they've been evolving. I think Jason Tatum's gonna be an MVP candidate either this year or next year. Either this year or next year, he's gonna evolve into that MVP level candidate. And I think Jalen Brown could be the best perimeter defender in the league if he keeps going. So for them, they're definitely going to be a top three team in the Eastern Conference. They're just they're going to finish with about there's 72 games this year. I would say they're going to finish with hot at about 45 wins this year, somewhere around there. About 45 wins this year. I think they're going to be, yeah. But yeah, I would say about 45 to 50 wins, somewhere in that range. They're going to finish probably with the second best record in the Eastern Conference. But this is just an immensely talented team. And I'm not the biggest Boston Celtics fan, but I can't wait to see what the additions of Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson do for this team. I think I think they've got one of the best young coaches in basketball and what's his name? Bradley. I can't remember his first name right now. But I think they're gonna have a good year this year. So next we're gonna move on towards the Toronto Raptors. Now, 2 years ago, the Raptors won the NBA championship behind the leadership of Kyle Lowry and the amazing play of their best player, Kawhi Leonard. I notice how I said that. Kyle Lowry was the leader of this team, and he still is the leader of this team. Now, the true test of how good they're going to be is if Fred Van Fleet and especially Pascal Siakam, if Pascal Siakam can show up, because Pascal did not have a good bubble, he kind of shrunk at the moment because this was the first year where he was the best player on this team. He was the most improved player on this team. But the trick is, can he keep up what he was doing in the regular season instead of what happened in the bubble? Because if we get the Pascal Siakam we got in the regular season, they're probably going to finish with the third or fourth best record in the Eastern Conference. If we got the bubble Pascal Siakam this year, it's going to be a rough year for the Toronto Raptors, especially since the Toronto Raptors will not be playing in Toronto this year because of travel restrictions because of COVID. So they're going to be playing down here in Tampa for the foreseeable future, for at least the first half of the NBA, for at least the first half of the NBA season. Now, if nothing changes, they're most likely going to play in Tampa for the entire season. So, but this is a good team. It's a very good team, a very well coached team, a team with a lot, with team with not only experience but good front office management with Masai Ujiri. And so I expect them to be in the top three this year. I expect Pascal Siakam to bounce back from a bad bubble. I expect Fred Van Fleet to continue to get better. I expect Fred to kind of take over, get a little bit more playmaking this year because Kyle Lowry has already been in the league for 14 years. This is his 14th year. He's pretty much at the end of his prime, even though last year he averaged 19 and what was it, 19 and 8. So I expect Kyle Lowry to maybe take a little bit of a step back, allowing Fred VanVleet to maybe take a step up to be, but I still believe Kyle Lowry is going to be the leader of this team. And they have a hard time getting people up there to play in Toronto. The taxes aren't exactly great. I think I've heard it's a great city, but the taxes kind of a little bit much. I think it's like a 50% tax up there in Canada, which is rough. And man, you make $20 million and 10 of it goes to the country of Canada. It's a little. That's a little. That would not endear me to playing in Toronto. But Kyle Lowry loves it up there. I think he's been there the entirety of his career, or the majority of his career, as far as I know. Let me check. I believe he's been there the majority of his. Nope, scratch that. Nope, he's been there last about 7 years. He started out in Memphis, then Houston, and since 2000, yeah, about 7 years. So since 2013, he's been in. He found his home in Toronto. He's an NBA champion, so I expect him to have a good year this year. Kind of stay in the top three of that conference. Now we're gonna move on towards the Milwaukee Bucks, who are home to the reigning, defending NBA MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, the Bucks had a very strange offseason. They did a trade for Drew Holiday, who's a very good player, very good underrated player in this league, but they gave up a lot to get him. A little more that I'm personally comfortable with. They signed DJ Augustine, but the major issue for this team is the trade that fell apart for Bogdan Bogdanovic, who is now in Atlanta. Uh, from what I understand, the way the trade went down is Bogdan Bogdanovic, the Sacramento Kings, and the Milwaukee Bucks basically agreed to a sign and trade where Bogdanovic goes to Milwaukee, and the Kings get Dante DiVincenzo and some picks. DiVincenzo, a player, and some picks. But that's not what happened. What happened was that they agreed to a trade before a trade could be agreed to. And yeah, they agreed to a trade before a trade could be agreed to, a trade that Bogdanovic himself didn't agree to because he couldn't have agreed to it because the trade happened far too early. The news of the trade happened about 3 days before free agency, which is the period where he could have actually agreed to a sign and trade to Milwaukee. That trade completely fell through. So you got Giannis on the verge of signing I want to say a 5-year supermax, which is worth I think like $230 million or something like that. But my God, the trick for them is now I would like to see Giannis stay in Milwaukee. I think he's comfortable there. I think he loves it there. But I believe his issue is his style of play doesn't work in the playoffs. And it works against teams that either aren't well coached or just aren't talented enough to stop him. But once you hit the second round or the conference finals or the NBA finals, his inability to shoot. Now, he's not like Ben Simmons. He will shoot if you give him an open shot. He'll even pull up for some jump shots. But what he needs like a post game. He needs like a Shaq, Akeem Olajuwon like post game where he's got to be able to get on the block and either hit a fadeaway, hit a jump hook, get to the rim. He needs to change his game around because unless he's going downhill in the offensive step, hitting a Euro step, spin move and dunk, he's not overly effective in the half court. He's a great rebounder, underrated passer. Great easy. He's not a great scorer. He can score because of his size, his wingspan, his weight, just the way his athletic ability allows him to score easily does not mean he is a great scorer, even though he averaged almost 30 points a game last year. But Giannis's issue is very, very, very simple. He's going to need to develop either a mid-range jump shot or a post game to the point where they can just throw it down to him and he can get a bucket. Because right now in the half court, he doesn't mesh well in the playoffs. Now, Drew Holiday, who's a very good two-way player, he's gonna make up for some of that in the half court. But the trick for Giannis Antetokounmpo is he's got to get better. He's got to learn to get a post game, because if he's not, then he's gonna have to leave Milwaukee if he wants to win a championship. Now, the teams that are talking about getting Giannis Antetokounmpo were the Miami Heat, but the Miami Heat signed Bam Adebayo to a new extension. So unless they move some parts around, they're probably not going to be able to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Dallas Mavericks have some cap room next year that they could get Giannis. Imagine Giannis playing with Luka and Kristaps. My God, that's a team that could immediately win a championship. That's an immediate championship contender right there. Imagine Giannis catching lobs from Luka, running out in the court with Luka, catching those transition lobs. Luka putting him in positions to score in the half court. Kristaps spotting up, hitting 3-point shots. Kristaps in the middle, blocking shots, getting rebounds. So that could be a really great team. But I believe that Giannis is probably going to sign his supermax. He's probably going to stay in Milwaukee. If he wants to win, he'll leave. If he wants to win, he has to do one of two things: either leave or change his game. That's the only way he's going to win a championship. So that's the breakdown for the Eastern Conference. Now, that's the primary breakdown of the Eastern Conference. The Milwaukee Bucks are basically a regular season team, so they are going to have most likely the best record in the Eastern Conference. There's no real if it ands or buts about that. They're probably going to have the best record in the East. They're going to have a good time. They're probably going to win around 50 games this year, 50, maybe 55 games this year, which is wild. But they are so good in the regular season, and unless you got a time to really, hammer down and really focus on stopping Giannis himself, you're not gonna have much issue with that. But I think they're gonna be fine. I think they're gonna be fine in the regular season. Now in the playoffs, it's gonna be rough for them. If I had to guess, I'd say the Eastern Conference Finals once again comes down to Miami and Boston. I love Miami. I love the way they play. If everything breaks right for Philly, they could be in there. The Nets, they've got health issues. If they can stay healthy, but I'm gonna go with the homer pick. Honestly, I'm gonna go with the homer pick. I think it's gonna be the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. That's the matchup I want to see. I think that's the matchup most people want to see. I think that would be the best matchup for the NBA as a whole. The trick is, can the Brooklyn Nets stay healthy? And is Kevin Durant near 90%? I think that's the trick. If he's like 90, 80, about 85, 90% of what he was, I think he's going to be great. Can Kyrie stay healthy? Can he, talk to the media without costing the Nets millions of dollars? Spoiled brat. But that's the trick. But I do believe the NBA Finals are probably going to be the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Lakers, with the Los Angeles Lakers taking home the championship. The LA Lakers are going to repeat this year, ladies and gentlemen. That's a prediction right here on the SJP Files. The Los Angeles Lakers will repeat. Now, the Eastern Conference is a little more up in the air because of injuries and schedules and style of plays. So your two teams in the NBA Finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe will be the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, like I said, I think it's going to be the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Lakers, but do not be surprised if the Boston Celtics make it to the NBA Finals and you get a Lakers-Celtics NBA Finals. I still believe the Lakers are going to win, but that's my prediction. That's how it is. That's how I see the NBA Finals playing out. I'm going to go with the Lakers probably in 6. I'm going with the Lakers in 6. And Anthony Davis wins his first NBA Finals MVP. I think Anthony Davis is probably going to win the regular. Now, Giannis isn't winning the MVP this year, so I think the MVP is going to play down between Anthony Davis and I would go with Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic are probably going to be in the mix for MVP of the year this year. I think Anthony Davis is going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year, hands down. Now, a couple of games have ended. Well, one game has ended. We've got another game in the start of the fourth quarter for the NBA preseason. The Atlanta Hawks beat the Orlando Magic 116-107. The Brooklyn Nets are up by 6 against the Washington Wizards 90-84. We got the Detroit Pistons up by like 20 on the New York Knicks, and the Houston Rockets and the Chicago Bulls are in pregame, and the Lakers and the Clippers game doesn't start till about 9 o'clock on ESPN. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 2 of the SJP podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Now, next week is going to be a twofer. Next week is very much going to be a twofer week. Next week is going to be the first week where I drop 2 episodes of the SJP podcast. I'm going to drop an episode probably Thursday on Christmas Eve. So I believe that's my day off. Let me check to make sure, but nope, scratch that. Yeah, the 17th. So I'm going to, this week, technically, next week, whatever. So Thursday is going to be episode 3 of the SJP podcast, where I break down the NBA's top 100 players for the 2020-2021 NBA season. And then Sunday, I will break down the other stories and I'll give you a recap of the games that happened this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to episode 2 of the SJP podcast. Like I said, next week is going to be a 2-episode week. On Thursday, I'm going to drop an episode about, once again, Thursday, I will be dropping an episode about the NBA's top 100 list, or is it the NBA's top 50 list? We'll see. I believe it's the top 100 list, and then ESPN's top 50 or 100 list, I believe it is. I forget what the actual full name of the list, but I believe it's the top 100 players. And on Sunday, I'm going to drop episode 4 of the SJP Files, breaking down all the preseason games, and I'm going to give you a records breakdown shortly before, because I believe the NBA season starts on Tuesday on the 22nd. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of the playoffs, and I give you like a breakdown of the playoffs, the seeds, where I believe everybody's going to fall in. And I've already told you who I believe is going to be in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. I already told you who I believe is going to be in the NBA Finals, and I already told you who's going to win the championship. But I'm going to give you a more in-depth breakdown on Sunday. Thank you for listening. See you next week.